Hi, welcome to the F1 Time Portal, a Formula One history podcast started by two Formula One tragics. I'm your host, Rosa.
And I'm your lava lamp host, Luigi. And today we're taking you back to the 1963 season. Let's go.
Okay, I think I'm figuring out what your what your theme is.
Why am I lava lamp? What's my new theme?
Yeah. Kitschy things of the 1960s.
No, it's even more. It's specific to the year.
Okay.
The lava lamp was invented in 1963.
Okay, but they're still not kitschy things. Are you going to go like super kitschy, or are you just going to do like you are a bit kitschy, Luigi?
Yeah, kitschy is lava lamp, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be kitschy. It's going to be,
okay.
If I can make it linked to motor racing, I will. But if I can't, it's what I like.
Okay.
So there you go.
Yes, that is very you. That is a very Luigi thing.
Yeah. So to 1963, this is a very interesting season for me, but I'll let you get started and I'll add in some comments.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this year we are met with the news that the FIA of the day, or the CSI, decided at the end of 1962 to extend the 1.5 litre Formula One era for a further 2 years.
And this is interesting because we had a pretty dominant British team showing in 1962, so I don't expect the British teams protested the decision this time, unlike what happened for 61.
Yes. No, they're on a high now, aren't they? So they're gonna love the fact that these rules are being extended, and they've got another 3 years to cement their place at the top. Ferrari, however, were not that happy, having dropped off the development race just a tad.
Yeah, well, the glory days of 1961 were 2 years ago now. So I'm sure if Ugolini was around, he would be finding something to complain about with this extension of the rules. So where is Ugolini when you need him?
Where is he? Exactly. Where is he gone?
I know. Last time we heard he was the manager of the Maserati team. That was like in the 50s.
Yeah, and then they folded. So maybe. Yeah. Maybe he's in Formula 2 somewhere wreaking havoc.
I've got a feeling he's still in Formula 1, but maybe not in a profile that we're used to.
Yeah. So another decision.
We need to do an Ugolini special episode.
You love Ugolini.
Really do.
I know.
Yeah.
So another decision made by the CSI was that cars which had completed 2/3 of the distance in a championship race would be classified as finishers, even though, for all intents and purposes, the car was retired.
That will be interesting given the amount of retirements we've seen due to mechanical failures, which have seemed to have gone up like a rocket.
Yes.
I'd like to do an analysis of retirements car related, and intuitively it's been a massive spike. I'm not sure if the facts play that out, but let's see if this changes things a little.
I don't know that it will impact on the championship, but you never know. It might. On the technical front, and this is just a very light touch, as you know, we're not techie people. Coventry Climax are developing their new Mark II version of the V8 engine, bringing it in line with the BRM and Ferrari engines. So I guess a lot of teams use that engine. So, yep. And as far as the cars went, there were very few changes, with BRM entering the BT7, a tidied up version of the BT3. Not much to say there, Luigi. Are you up with all the BTs? No.
Oh, yeah. I know it's Brabham Toranac.
That's right.
I can say. That's the only value add I can give there.
Okay, that's a very good contribution in our technical section. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Colin Chapman, however, he's produced a very sleek Lotus 25. So most British constructors are focusing on refinements only. And, he just did the next evolution, I think, of the Lotus 21 and, came up with the Lotus 25.
And that Lotus 21 was looking pretty good in 62. And I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it, except if there's a development race on. And the Lotus 25 was an awesome looking car. I really like the yellow mags on this car. I don't know if Lotus always had those yellow mags, but they really stand out so much against the British racing green. So maybe that's how they differentiated cars of the same country. Like, because you know how we were talking about, the British cars are British racing green and the Italian cars are all red.
Yes.
I wonder if that's how Lotus said, we're a Lotus, we're not a BRM. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I really love the
even
yellow.
Even Brabham was green, I think.
Yeah, I think he was. Yes. Yeah, I really love the yellow wheels as well. I reckon that this car looks really awesome, really, really good.
Yeah.
So BRM, though, they produced the P61, which was a semi-monocoque car with front and rear suspension sporting a double wishbone layout. I don't know. That's going to mean something to some people.
That'll mean a lot to someone. Yeah, I was about to say. It's not a single wishbone. It's double.
No, it's double. It's a double, yes. But this wouldn't be ready until very late in the season. So they're going to stick with their current or their old car from last year for most of the season. Enzo Ferrari also turned his attention to the monocoque chassis and later in the year produced a semi-monocoque car which resembled the Lotus 25.
Well, I guess he's turning to a tried and true principle in Formula One. If you can't beat them, join them. And maybe after the revolution at the start of 62, maybe this is a better strategy. I mean, he does have a rear-engine car now. He's just a bit slower than the rest as a general rule with these sort of things. So, yeah.
Yeah. So during the season, Ferrari mainly relied on their modified version of their Tipo 156 with no shark nose, but with revised suspension and for the first time, alloy wheels. I can't believe it's taken him this long to get to alloy wheels.
I know. I don't know if the others already had it. I suspect they did.
Yeah, I think I've read about them other teams having alloys already.
Yeah, and Colin Chapman was obsessed with weight. So, yeah, he would have been onto alloy wheels before anyone else. But I guess it's goodbye shark nose.
I know.
We'll never forget you, even though Enzo was not sentimental about his cars. He was, as we've talked about before, he was notorious for scrapping his old cars once they had finished. And the 1961 shark nose Ferrari lives on in our F1 Time Portal logo.
Yeah, and hearts. Yes.
And
Did you say that no original ones exist of that car, Luigi? Like there's only
none.
None.
Replicas.
That's
it's
sad.
Nuts, isn't it? That would have given the W196 a run for its money, perhaps, because the Ferrari name is perhaps stronger than the Mercedes name. If you had to rank it by emotional,
definitely, yes,
points.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though the W196 was a more revolutionary car.
Yeah. This one looked like a classic.
Had a distinctive.
Yes, and it was a classic kind of Formula One car of its era, whereas the W196 looks like some futuristic sports car rather than, a Formula One car of its time.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, we'll move on. We'll move on from the shark nose reluctantly. So there were new challenges on the grid this season too. So, Luigi, do you remember that we said last year that the Tipo, and you mentioned it just then, that the Tipo 156 engineers were all fired at the end of 1961 by Enzo, and he accused them of wanting to start their own team?
Yeah. Are you telling me Enzo was right?
Yes. Chief engineer Carlo Chitti. Yes, he started the ATS team. I won't tell you. I think it's Automobile Turismo e Sport. And he lured over Phil Hill and Giancarlo Baghetti as his drivers. I don't know. Shall I tell you now how they did? Because we're not going to talk about them. Like they are so...
Let's rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, we're ripping the Band-Aid off. They would be a complete flop and they would only last... this year, and I don't even think they race all the races. I think they pull out of a few as well.
It's a massive effort to start a new team. It's a massive effort to launch a new brand, start a new business, even start a new podcast, as we know, Rosa.
Yes.
I mean, Phil Hill was rudely sacked by Ferrari, so he was probably desperate to get one up on Ferrari. Yes. But clearly this did not turn out to be the case.
Like you say, it's a big deal to do that. It's a big effort. And then he was adding the extra pressure of going up against Enzo.
Yeah. in particular.
Directly.
In the defense of the Ferrari team, though, they were sacked. So what else could they do? Like, they could start their own team. They could split up and be employees in other teams. But chances are they really liked working together and they gave it a go. So let's give them a pat on the back for at least giving it a go. But they were sacked. So it's like they had nothing else to do.
He picked it, right? He was like, it's not that you don't enjoy working for my wife, who's awesome, by the way. Yeah. It's that you guys are trying to, steal stuff from me and start your own team.
It could have been strategy of their end to like, let's make ourselves get sacked so we have the moral high ground to starting this team.
Yes.
Who knows?
Well, this whole thing also, like Phil Hill going over there, damaged his reputation as well. And also I think he just never recovers. He says his career never recovers from this, going to this team.
Yeah.
Which is a bit sad, being a, world champion.
Do we still need to say P Hill, G Hill?
I don't think this...
I'm looking at the season championship and I don't see a P Hill getting any points.
No, I don't think
So I think we can drop it.
Yeah, I agree. Now Hill is only Graham. Yeah.
Yes.
So Bowmaker and UDT decide to end their association with the sport, and Reg Parnell takes over the Lolas and signs up New Zealander Chris Amon as his number one driver.
That's really interesting. Reg Parnell actually raced 3 teams under the banner of Reg Parnell Basing. So he's a bit of a classic name because of his association with so many elements of the sport. So Lola Climax, Lotus Climax, and Lotus BRM. So I jokingly think that if he could have just squeezed in a Brabham chassis and a Ferrari engine, he would have got the quadfecta, which is the 4 version of a trifecta, which is different chassis, different engine, just all the mixes.
Just all the combinations.
Imagine a Brabham Ferrari.
Yeah,
Brabham
exactly.
Ferrari, Lola BRM. He doesn't have a Lola BRM.
No.
So good on him for mixing and matching. That could not happen today.
No way. But he was actually a driver, wasn't he, back in the day? He drove a couple of races, I remember. Reg Parnell?
He did. Yeah. In fact, wasn't he in the I'm trying to remember, was it the Mercedes? Was he the token British driver?
I think he he was in the Ferrari.
Oh, no, Alfa Romeo. No, it was Alfa Romeo.
Was it Alfa? Yeah.
Yes. At the debut, first Formula One race, it was Reg Parnell was the token British driver for the British event.
Yes.
And then they had Fagioli, Farina and
I think he actually got points. I think he actually got points in that race as well. So good on him.
Good on him.
Yeah. So now he's and as you say, he's involved for many years, isn't he? He's a big name like that, Reg Parnell. Yeah. But it is going to be hard to keep track of the cars because everyone's got a Climax, Lotus, BRM, Lotus. I don't know how we're going to say it.
Yeah.
So
it could have been worse because we could have. This is going to sound funny. We could have had a McLaren driving a Brabham Ferrari. Now that really plays with your mind, doesn't it?
Does,
because we know these teams, these are all teams and drivers.
Yes, and drivers, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so the drivers that we are going to focus on this season, because as we've said, we don't call out everything that happens in a race with every driver. Like, good on them for being in Formula One and it's a massive achievement, but we sort of focus on the big players of the season. So, this year it will be Graham, Hill and Ginther driving for BRM, Clark and Taylor for Team Lotus, Brabham and Gurney for Brabham, Bruce McLaren and Tony Maggs for the Cooper team, and Surtees has gone over to Ferrari. I think this is his first season with Ferrari. Surtees and Mayrese. I don't know. Now I'm going to... See, you've gone in my head with that name, Luigi. I don't know how to say it now either.
I struggle. Well, you taught me. How can you forget?
Yeah.
So we also have another track added to the calendar, which is Mexico, bringing the season to 10 races. I think we've had a 10 racing season before.
I think we have.
This is becoming the new normal. Yeah.
Yep.
And points were awarded on the basis of 9 for first, 6 for second, 4 for third, 3 for fourth, 2 for fifth, and 1 for sixth, with only the best 6 results counting towards the championship. And those are the points that we've talked about before. Stay till the mid to late 90s or something.
Yeah, so nothing's changed there. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Or did they change it to the best? Oh, no. Was that the best 6 last time as well? We would have put that in for a reason. Like, we wouldn't have said it if nothing changed.
I think it was 61 or 62 is when they did it initially.
Yeah, okay.
We're just recapping it here. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you ready for our first race?
Yes, let's go. Is it Argentina like the old days? No, it's
not
anymore.
It's Monaco.
Yeah.
Monaco. Yeah, so we're at Monaco. The date is the 26th of May. As everyone knows, it's the Monaco Street Circuit. It's 100 laps, 16 drivers and a 2x2x2 grid formation. So this is a new grid formation this year at Monaco. Usually it's a 3x2x3. Don't know why they changed it. I think the cars are getting smaller, so I don't know. Yeah, they do. Monaco do change a lot of things. But as usual, only 16 starters were allowed to qualify for the race.
Okay. And apparently 24 entries were invited, but only 16 turned up. Maybe because they didn't put champagne up as prize again. And to be honest, and this is what I think the real reason is, plus the teams may have been sick of the random qualifying system that Monaco has been doing the last few years. You remember they had this rule where it was like one driver from each team and then some other requirements. It was a bit of a mixed bag as to who was what. So,
they did shake things up every year.
The teams have sorted themselves out and said, nah, we're not bothering. It's impressive.
It is. So Brabham's engine blew up during the first practice, but the spare was in Gurney's new BT7, so he had to return to the Coventry Climax factory in England for repairs. Isn't that wild?
I found this I tried to get my head around this. He made a trip back during the week. I know Monaco and Britain are not far, but he made a trip back to on the weekend. Did he not have enough people to do that? Couldn't he have sent one of his lackeys across and rung through the instructions on the phone? Like, what happened to qualifying? Do you get what I mean? It's crazy that he just got up and went.
Yeah, he just left. I know. But I guess as the owner of the team, he thought he needed to be there. But he's got to learn to delegate, Brabham. Like, that's... Yeah. Well, what happened to qualifying?
He was a very engineering guy, so whether he felt he was the only one that could really explain it, but surely he could do it on the phone. But okay.
Yes. Well, as a result, he started from the back of the grid. So not great, but when he did return from England, he decided to install the repaired engine into Gurney's car, and he persuaded Colin Chapman to lend him a spare Lotus 25.
That's massive. That says a lot about the respect Chapman had for Brabham and the commendatore. It's like
and their camaraderie.
I made the camaraderie. That had a very opposite meaning, didn't it? Because especially what I'm about to say, because it's like another world. Like if you look at this in 2024, for example, I find this hilarious. When Sargent lost his car at the 24 Australian Grand Prix, wouldn't it have been funny if the Williams manager went to another team to borrow their car? But obviously he would go to Red Bull first, because why not have the best car on the grid?
Yeah.
But they'll likely say no. But I wonder if there's an unwritten rule that you respect the status of where you are. So if you're a Williams and you've lost your car, you ask Sauber, or dare I say, you ask Alpine.
Yeah, well, this season, absolutely. Alpine's down there. Yeah.
Now, the one thing I was going to mention, another thing about Colin Chapman lending Brabham a Lotus 25 to use, was that I was at a historic motor racing event earlier this week, and one of the comments made to me was by one of the people that was like, he knew Jack Brabham well and was his did his engines and all that sort of thing. Brabham had a really deep passion to defeat the Ferraris and beat the Ferraris.
Really?
Now, I think that camaraderie of beating the Ferraris wasn't just Brabham, it was probably all the British teams.
It was all the teams, yeah.
Yes, I'll make a bet Colin Chapman whispered to him, stick it up to those Ferraris, and I'll make a bet that was a driving factor in these, like, you know, your enemy is The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Is my friend. Yeah, your enemy's enemy is my friend. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
So anyway,
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like everyone wants to beat the Red Bulls now. Like I wonder if there's anything going on. We don't hear about it now. It's much more sanitized.
The same issues happening.
Yeah. Formula One's much more sanitized and professional and corporate now, so I don't know that these side deals happen too much. So back to qualifying. Clark takes pole with 1 minute 34.3 seconds, and Graham Hill takes a spot alongside him, only 0.6 of a second behind. Surtees in the Ferrari and Ginther on equal times line up alongside each other on the second row.
Okay.
So Louis Chiron lowers the flag at this race.
Chiron.
I
think it's
sorry.
Yeah, Chiron. Oh, look at me correcting you. That's rare.
I know.
Yeah, that's rare.
So both BRMs of Hill and Ginther out-accelerate Clark's Lotus at the start.
Yeah, I call that I'm not going to call that a nonsense start. It's a moderate nonsense start at best, but because of how awesome Clark is.
He's usually really good at the starts, isn't he? Yeah, so this is not his usual start. So after 4 laps, Clark finally gets past Ginther and sets about catching Hill. For 13 laps, Clark drew alongside Hill, but Hill staves him off until lap 17 when Hill finally gets past him and opens up a clear lead.
Okay.
I think that's the other way around, isn't it? Clark gets past Hill and opens up a clear lead.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
On lap 28, Surtees gets past Ginther.
They're all going to retire. They're all going to retire anyway, so it doesn't matter. No,
I'll just skip to the end. No, hopefully they don't.
Yeah.
So on lap 28, Surtees gets past Ginther and starts to close the 5-second gap on Hill. Mayres and Ireland retire, as does Gurney in the Bramham and Siffert. So you called it, Luigi. There's 4 retirements.
While I have read this, I didn't read ahead just then. I was just using instinct.
Yeah. So on lap 57, Surtees gets past Hill, but Hill repasses the Ferrari as Surtees slows down to put on his spare goggles as the original ones had been covered in oil following Hill's BRM.
It's like a sketch out of Wacky Races that he had a spare set in the car. I wonder where. Yeah, sorry, Rosa.
And I reckon Hill's got a button, with the Wacky Races reference. Hill's got a button to spill oil out on the car behind him. That is a classic cartoon move.
Yeah, that's right. I thought the Wacky Races was more about having a spare set of glasses, goggles at his I imagine his hand went down and went back up again with another pair. Something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
But I wonder where those goggles sat in the car. Were they under the seat?
Probably.
Or were they stuck to the edge of the chassis? I'm not sure.
Yeah. They would have
had
had to
pocket?
No, that would be too hard to take out. I reckon, under the seat. Under the seat is what I'd go with. By lap 78.
What else is under there? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Some snacks, a wrench.
And for those that are religious, maybe a little rosary bead thing.
Yeah. Well, they needed it in this era.
Yeah.
So, by lap 78, Surtees had slipped to 5th behind Ginther and McLaren after an issue with falling oil pressure. So on lap 79, Clark's gearbox jammed and somehow both 2nd and 4th gear were selected at the same time, causing the wheels to lock solid and sending his car off the road and out of the race.
That's very annoying for him.
Very annoying. 16 seconds later, Hill passed him for the lead and won the race from Ginther and then McLaren, holding off a surging Surtees in 4th.
Yeah. So unlucky
16
for Clark
seconds,
after all that work. Yeah. And he had a good lead as well. So this season, you can tell by the name of the season, it's a Lotus season, and Lotus is Clark. and he should have won this race. Do you know what I mean?
16 seconds. I mean, that's a race-winning lead with 12 laps to go or whatever. Well, not even, 79, 11 laps to go.
Yeah.
So how are we standing, Luigi?
Oh, that's right. It's my job. Okay.
Yes.
We take turns, everyone. And so I sometimes forget that that's my job. So the driver championship standings are Graham Hill's first with 9 points, Ginther second on 6, and Bruce McLaren on third with 4 points. And in the constructors, we've got Brabham leading with 9, followed by Cooper Climax 4 and Ferrari with 3 points. So the British teams are picking up where they left off last year.
Okay, race 2 of 10. We're at the Belgian Grand Prix. So it's June the 9th. We're at Spa again, 32 laps, 20 drivers and a grid formation of 3x2x3. The practice was not going well for the big teams here. Clark's Lotus kept jumping out of gear and the BRMs of Hill and Ginther were also having gearbox troubles. The rear end of Taylor's Lotus car collapsed, sending him spinning off the circuit, but fortunately he escaped serious injury and was able to continue in the spare car.
Yeah, typical Colin Chapman car, fast but very flimsily held together with as little as possible to make it light. And I'll make another reference to that historic motor racing event. We talked about Colin Chapman and the Lotus, and there was a lot when I brought up about the delicacy of the Lotus cars.
Yes.
It was very clearly mentioned, and the people I was hanging out with, they were, I think, with all due respect, I think they were in their 80s or thereabouts, and or older, and they had been there and done that, and had probably met with the guy, some of them, and they said that the car was built only to last the race, and sometimes only to last the lap. So
wow.
I'm glad that Taylor was okay.
Yeah, well, I think we've also referenced like some drivers just didn't feel comfortable driving the Chapman cars. They were just too light and flimsy and so I think I don't even remember who it was, but some drivers just even refused to be in the team. So, that makes sense.
Actually that reminds me of another quote said to me. They didn't name who said it, but they were talking. One of the guys was a racing driver from the 60s from Australia, an Australia dual champion. Spencer Martin, I'll call him out, but I still need to research him a little bit more before I really engage with you, Spencer, if you're listening to this. But he was basically saying along the lines of, if you wanted to win the race, you drove a Lotus. If you wanted to go home to your family, you drove anything else.
Oh, wow.
So these were pretty big comments by these people.
Yes, that's huge.
Yeah.
Okay, so the grid was a bit mixed for the start of the race. Graham Hill eventually taking pole with a time of 3 minutes 54.1 seconds. Gurney second with 3 minutes 55 and Mayresse third in the Ferrari. McLaren qualified fifth, Brabham sixth and Clark started from eighth. So on to race day.
Start for Clark. Just calling it out, unusual for him to be eighth. Something must have gone wrong.
Yeah. So on race day, it was wet and miserable, but that did nothing to prevent Clark from storming into the lead with a magnificent start from the third row. He didn't need to qualify well.
Yeah. No, I genuinely didn't read ahead. I just said that intuitively eighth felt wrong.
It does,
Clark fixed that up, so thanks, Clark. Yeah.
After only one lap, he and Hill were 15 seconds clear of Brabham in third.
Okay. That is an amazing start, as I was just saying.
Yeah.
But the car is held together with sticky tape. I'm joking. I'm exaggerating. It's not that bad. But it's comparatively held with sticky tape. It's probably a more correct term to use.
Yeah. So Brabham and his teammate Gurney was right behind him trying to hold off the Ferrari of Mayresse. But on lap 2, Mayresse was able to get past both Brabhams and McLaren also shot past Gurney to nestle between them in fifth. On lap 7, Mayresse retired after a loss of power and Brabham also retired with an electrical fault. At half distance, Clark was 26 seconds clear of Hill, with Gurney now in third, followed by Ginther in fourth and McLaren fifth. Then all of a sudden, the rain started and the entire circuit was soaked.
I mean, Spa's a huge circuit, and it must have been quite a storm rolling in. So, first of all, I wonder if they stop for wet. And Spa is the sort of track where you can have microclimates on part of the track.
Yes.
So it could have been one section that was raining. It doesn't really say, but
no,
I get the impression
it was a
proper rain.
Yeah, it said the entire circuit, okay. But I couldn't find anything that suggested a tyre change. But you'd have to think that they all did put on wets at this stage. But anyway,
we did have wet tyres. So
we do, yeah. We've seen them in previous seasons, haven't we? So Hill's car developed gearbox trouble, bringing his race to an end. This left Clark even more secure in the lead, and with the rain causing a lot of retirements, there were only 6 cars left on the track. Clark crossed the finish line 5 minutes ahead of McLaren, who had caught and passed Gurney, who found the Brabham really difficult to handle in the wet. Ginther in the other BRM finished 4th.
That's just a massive lead, and Clark's performance was made even more impressive by the fact that the gearbox issues meant that he had to hold his gear lever in place, thus driving one-handed on Spa. So whenever fifth gear was selected on this high-speed circuit. So given the rainy conditions, Clark eventually chose not to engage fifth gear at all, leaving him with only 4 gears, and he still won by that 5-minute margin.
5 minutes.
He was just ridiculous margin. So awesome result by him, I guess. His first win of the season.
Yes.
So the championship is Bruce McLaren is leading with 10 points. So interesting, Bruce is leading, having not won a race, but reliability, good on you, Bruce. And that Cooper hasn't really been a shining car since Brabham was winning the championship in 1959 and 60, has he? So good on him, McLaren, for being up there. Clark second on 9, Graham Hill third on 9, Richie Ginther on 9, and Dan Gurney with 4. And in terms of the constructors, we've got BRM with 12, followed by Lotus 10, Cooper 10, Brabham 4, and Ferrari all the way down in 5th with 3 points.
Poor Ferrari. Okay, race 3. We have the Dutch Grand Prix. It's June the 23rd. We're at Zandvoort. 80 laps, 19 drivers, and a 3x2x3 grid formation. Yep, and so we're at Spa, and BRM arrive with their new semi-monocoque car, but its brakes seized during first practice, so they abandoned it.
That was
Clark,
quick.
Yeah.
Is that must be a really hard thing to fix?
Because
why would you abandon? I know they don't abandon it forever. They just abandon it for this weekend, I think. But it's still.
Yes. I was thinking, where's the testing though? Like, don't they test it before they kind of unveil it at a race weekend? But I don't know. And brakes is a pretty big deal. I guess if your brakes aren't working, you don't just go into a big race with no brakes. Yeah. So fair enough. Clark takes pole, Hill second, and McLaren just beat out Brabham to take the last spot on the front row. Surtees in the Ferrari
what
took
team
fourth.
is Brabham driving in? What Brabham's team?
No, I'm not saying.
I forget.
You just want me to say brum brum. It's Brabham. Brabham. I think our very smart listeners know by now that Brabham is in his own team.
Okay.
So the start of the race was
I'll
picture
remind them
perfect.
every now and then.
Yeah. So unlike last week or the last race, the start of the race was picture perfect with all 3 front row cars side by side as they entered the hairpin. Clark was the best with the best line from pole though, took the lead and left Hill and McLaren fighting for second. McLaren then found he could only select 5th and 6th gear, so he headed to the pits where he sat for 30 minutes trying to fix the problem. Brabham overtook.
I can interject here.
Yes,
I can interject here with another story from that historical thing. It's coming to me as we talk about these races. When I asked these old dudes, why were the gearboxes so breaking down all the time?
Yeah, that's a good question.
We've talked about it for the last 4 or 5 years, and one of the guys I was speaking to was a gearbox expert. So these were technical people, not like us. So, and he summed it up really easily. He said they were all using this stock standard gearbox, which was off a standard car, but the engines were generating so much more power with so many more revs. The gearboxes just couldn't keep up, and it took till Hewland came up with a proper racing standard gearbox before the reliability started to come back. So he summed it up as basically saying everything around the gearbox was getting faster and faster, and the gearbox was the same, and it was being pushed way beyond what it was ever intended to be. And that's why they were so unreliable. And so being gentle was actually a really key factor to make the gearbox survive.
Wow. So it just didn't. And when did it happen? When did the new gearbox with the better capacity come in?
The Hewland gearbox. He wasn't 100% sure. I think he said in the late 60s. So we're 63. So we're still 5 years away from a proper racing gearbox. So they're using what I would call sort of domestic gearboxes, but maybe better ones.
Like the Holden.
It's hard to say. Yeah, like the V-Dub going in.
Yeah, like the V-Dub big gearbox.
Let's pick an international brand, like a Volkswagen. The Volkswagen Golf gearbox in a Formula 1 car. Yeah.
The mini gearbox.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they would have gone with the small one actually. The smaller the better, lighter. Yeah. Interesting. Anyway, sorry, it's a diversion. I thought it was interesting to explain that.
I think it's going to happen quite a bit because you only just went to this event like during the week, and I don't think you've actually had time to look at our notes and put in some extra notes for you. So I think I'm just going to have to get used to you interrupting me quite a lot during these ones.
Yeah, as I start to become a big shot in the historic motor racing scene of Australia.
I can only laugh at you, like not at you, like laugh with you being with all these technical dudes at a function because as we've said, we are not like technical rev heads at all. So that would have been quite challenging for you, Louis.
It was. There were lots of times when I was just silently listening because I had no idea what they were talking about. But I could tell they were talking about some nuance. Oh, I heard the term big end. I heard that being talked about. Remember we had an episode where we said the big end had failed.
Yes, that's right.
And I was like, I had to stop myself asking the question, what is that? I didn't want to lose all credibility in that one question.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyway, back to the race.
Back to the race. Okay, well, if inspiration strikes, just go for it, Louis. Okay,
I will.
So Brabham then overtook Hill for second, followed by Maggs and Surtees. Gurney was making his way through the field after being last of the grid due to fluffing a gear change.
Okay, so I've got to call you out on this, Rosa. What you're telling me, we know the number one rule in this podcast is we really have to pay attention to nonsense starts. So you're telling me now that Gurney was making his way through the field after being last off the grid due to fluffing a gear change. So that's a nonsense start if ever there was one. And you're telling me at lap 20?
Yes. Well, I didn't think he was like they weren't going to be like a big player in this race. So I sort of left it, and then I thought, and then I was as going through it, I was like, oh no, now I'm going to have to mention it.
Gurney's in the Brabham. He won their first race last year, if I recall correctly. He won Porsche's first race. He won Brabham's first race. So I'm basically going to call out some nonsense podcasting here. So you've got to improve your nonsense call out. So that's your first warning.
Is that how it's going?
Call out,
right. Okay, that's it. It's on now. I'm going to start.
We can give each other yellow. Cards and everything now. I'll give you a warning flag. I won't give you a 5 second stop go. Like you have to be silent for 5 seconds. That's your punishment.
I'm surprised. I am really surprised you are going down this path, Luigi, because my memory is way better than yours.
I know. I'm playing with fire. That's for sure. I'm even going to forget that I did this to you.
Yes,
so when you come back at me, I'm going to be shocked.
You're going to. Okay. We carry on. Yes. By lap 20, Clark led by 20 seconds over Hill, who had repassed Brabham. Surtees was fourth, with Gurney in the second Brabham still catching this group. Gurney's fuel pipe then came loose, so he had to pit, but was soon back on track, having lost places to Ireland, Ginther and Bonnier.
He's really pushing that Brabham, and I mean, it's sort of holding up.
Yes,
so,
only just.
Yeah.
By lap 50, he had made up lots of ground and was now only 20 seconds behind Surtees, who was still fourth. Oh, you know what? You're right. I might have to take that yellow card. I can't remember what actually happens, but it's sounding like Gurney's going to win this thing anyway.
Yeah, this is turning into the 5-second stop go. Just saying, if he wins this race or does really well, you're in trouble.
Brabham, still in third, found his throttle starting to stick, which caused him to spin off the track and damage his chassis, and that meant his retirement on lap 68.
It's funny that the Brabham with Brabham is not doing too great. This is his second retirement in a row, and Gurney's having some niggling problems too. So this is, I guess, this is the teething challenges of a newish team. You know, I mean, it's not really new. It's won a race, but not a good start.
Maybe Brabham's like actually pushing his Brabham, like doing some real kind of stress testing on that car, whereas Gurney's maybe driving it within itself a little bit. I don't know, but you're right. Brabham seems to have a lot of like really severe mechanical issues all the time.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because he was like annoyed at himself. He knew he should have gone back to the factory during this weekend, but he decided to drive, and he's telling himself off. I should have gone back to the office. I should have gone back. I shouldn't be in this car.
Yeah. So here was BRM then, which had been running hot since the start of the race, forced him to stop for water, which let Surtees and Gurney through. But then the Ferrari overcooked a corner and Gurney and Hill went past him. So that's Surtees in the Ferrari.
So, wait, hang on. Wait. Gurney's in second place?
Yep.
Up from starting last?
Yep, that seems to be the case.
That's a surprise.
Yes.
That seems to be a surprise result for a nonsense start, can you say?
Yes, definitely. Hill challenged hard, but his engine died just as he was about to complete the overtake.
That's pretty dramatic. What an ending.
Clark won the race, a clear lap ahead of Gurney. See, he was Clark was a lap ahead of Gurney, and Surtees was third.
Yeah, Clark was pretty much on his own this whole race, much like Max in most of 2023.
Yeah, the telecast, we didn't hear about Clark at all. Like the telecast we see today of our races that we're watching in 2024, you see Max start and then all the commentaries about the rest of the grid, and then you see Max finish. That's exactly what happened here. Yeah.
Because most of the action was happening behind him, and especially with Gurney in particular. Yeah.
Yes.
So with the championship, we've got Jim Clark leading with 18 points, having won the last two races. Ginther is second on 11 points. Bruce McLaren third with 10, and Dan Gurney in 10 as well, and Graham Hill with 9. So he hasn't scored much since that first win of the season. The championship of the constructors, Lotus is first with 19. BRM is second with 14. Cooper with 10 is third, and equal with Brabham also on 10. And Ferrari actually got some points, sitting with 7 points because Surtees got third in this race.
Okay, well, we might leave it there, and I might have to, now that I'm in danger of collecting stop-go penalties, and I might take this opportunity to check my notes for the rest of the podcast for this season. Nice. We'll leave it there, and we'll come back with the second part of 1963 next time.
Okay, see you next time, everyone. Bye.
Bye. We have a Patreon!
Yay, we're a professional podcast now. So it means a lot to us if you are able to support the F1 Time Portal podcast.
For a small monthly fee, you not only get ad-free podcast content, you will also receive special episodes that are exclusively uploaded for our Patreon financial supporters.
We promise at least 2 additional exclusive episodes each month, aligned to the decade we are up to in the show.
And you will also be able to make suggestions about any special episodes you may want us to research and present. We can't promise that we can do all of them, but we will consider them.
So, if that sounds like an entertainment bargain to you, go and sign up at patreon.com/F1 Time Portal today.
If you're enjoying our podcast, please tell your friends and non-F1 friends alike.
Yeah, and don't forget to rate us 5 stars or whatever highest is available on the podcast platform that you use.
We have a range of social media handles for you to connect with fellow listeners, so look up F1 Time Portal on all the usual platforms.
Or visit us at www.f1timeportal.com or email us at f1timeportal@gmail.com.
We would like to give credit to our primary reference materials, a series of books called Grand Prix by Mike Lang.
We also use many other written and digital references, which are in our show notes.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.